When the Thorn Birds premiered in 1983, it became an instant television sensation, drawing millions into its sweeping tale of forbidden love, ambition, and sacrifice. With a stellar cast and powerful storytelling, the miniseries left a lasting mark on audiences worldwide. However, as the years have passed, many of the talented actors who brought these unforgettable characters to life are no longer with us. Some enjoyed long and celebrated careers, while others were taken far too soon. In this tribute, we remember 37 actors from the Thorn Birds who have sadly passed away, honoring their remarkable performances and the legacies they left behind. Christopher Plummer played Archbishop Vittorio Contini Vercese in the Thorn Birds in 1983 at the age of 54, embodying a man of unwavering faith torn by inner conflict. A titan of stage and screen, he found early success but often felt trapped by his own reputation. His role in The Sound of Music brought him fame, yet he resented it, calling it a curse that overshadowed his dramatic work. Despite accolades, including an Academy Award late in life, his personal demons never left him. His first 2 marriages ended bitterly, and though he had a daughter, Amanda, their relationship was distant and strained, marred by his emotional absence. He battled alcoholism for years, numbing himself with liquor as a means of escape. His later years were spent in frailty and regret, with his body weakening as time caught up to him. A devastating fall at home led to complications he could not recover from, and on February 5, 2021, he passed away at 91, leaving behind a legacy of brilliance tinged with sorrow.
Country, Australia. She supports the church well despite the depression. One day, the Holy Father...
Jean Simmons played Fiona Cleary in the Thorn Birds in 1983 at 54, embodying a woman whose quiet suffering mirrored much of her real life. A British child star, she was thrust into Hollywood's golden era, but instead of glamour, she found a system that controlled and exploited her. Her first marriage to actor Stuart Granger was filled with jealousy and possessiveness, leaving her emotionally drained. Seeking happiness, she later married director Richard Brooks, but their union crumbled, leading to a painful divorce. She had 2 daughters, but her demanding career and personal struggles kept her from being the mother she had hoped to be. Depression and alcoholism followed, a way to numb the pain of failed relationships and lost opportunities. In her later years, she was diagnosed with lung cancer, a devastating result of her lifelong smoking habit. On January 22, 2010, she passed away at 80, her final days spent in quiet resignation, the radiance of her youth long faded into sorrow.
If you dare pack your things, we'll go to him.
No, I can't. It would kill him to see me.
Barbara Stanwyck played Mary Carson in the Thorn Birds in 1983 at the age of 76, embodying a woman consumed by power and unfulfilled love. A Hollywood icon, she built a formidable career, but behind her strength lay immense personal suffering. Her first marriage to Frank Fay was marred by abuse, and though her second marriage to Robert Taylor was more stable, it ended in a painful divorce. She adopted a son, Anthony Dion Fay, but their relationship was bitter and estranged, with him ultimately cutting off all contact. As she aged, loneliness became her only companion, and she withdrew from public life, spending her days in isolation. A lifelong heavy smoker, she developed severe respiratory issues, and in her later years, health complications left her increasingly frail. On January 20, 1990, she passed away at 82 from congestive heart failure and chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, alone in her home, haunted by the ghosts of her past.
Sometimes, Mary, I think you know me better than I know myself.
I'm certain of that, too.
Piper Laurie played Anne Mueller in the Thorn Birds in 1983 at 51, portraying a woman of wisdom and kindness, a stark contrast to the cruelty she endured in real life. A child of Hollywood's ruthless studio system, she was forced into manufactured romances and had little control over her career. At 18, she suffered a horrifying sexual assault by a powerful industry figure, a trauma that haunted her for decades. Determined to reclaim her autonomy, she walked away from Hollywood at the height of her fame, spending years in obscurity. She later married film critic Joe Morgenstern, but their marriage deteriorated, leaving her a single mother struggling to balance work and parenting. Though she eventually rebuilt her career, she was plagued by a sense of being undervalued, cast aside as a relic of a bygone era. Her health slowly declined, and on October 14, 2023, she passed away at 91 after a long illness, her resilience tested until the very end.
What in heaven have you got on your head?
Is it glorious? Oh, Lottie, we had the best time. Maggie took me into Dunglow Christmas shopping.
Earl Holliman played Letty Mueller in The Thorn Birds in 1983 at 55, portraying a devoted husband, a stark contrast to his own life of solitude. Born to an unwed teenage mother and placed in an orphanage, he spent his early years longing for stability. Hollywood gave him a career but not fulfillment. While he starred in numerous films and TV shows, he never married, never had children, and struggled with a deep sense of isolation. Though he dedicated much of his later life to animal welfare, his own personal connections dwindled with time. As Hollywood moved on, he faded from public memory, his once prominent career reduced to occasional nostalgia. In his final years, he lived in quiet solitude, his body weakening with age. On November 25, 2024, he passed away at 96, his departure barely making headlines, a forgotten star who had spent a lifetime searching for belonging.
I'm just glad you did come, Your Grace. It's good to know there's someone in the world who cares about the poor girl.
Thank you. I want to go.
Allan and MacGarry stepped into the role of Mrs. Smith in 1983 at 57, bringing warmth and stability to a character who served as a comforting presence in a world rife with turmoil. In real life, however, MacGarry's own journey was marked by heartbreak and loss. A versatile actress with roles in Jeremiah Johnson and The Way We Were, she never found superstardom, though she worked steadily in Hollywood's golden years. But behind the scenes, tragedy loomed. Her husband, the actor George Gaines, struggled with depression, and their only child, Aya Gaines Falcone Brown, battled mental illness for years. The burden of caretaking and the unpredictability of show business left MacGarry emotionally drained. As she aged, her memory began to betray her, the early signs of Alzheimer's creeping in like an unrelenting fog. By the 2010s, she no longer recognized friends or family, trapped in a mind that had once been so sharp. On May 21, 2018, she died at the age of 91.
Fire! Fire on Drogheda! Yes.
Richard Kiley embodied Paddy Cleary in 1983 at 61, portraying the hard-working patriarch whose unwavering love for his family was both his strength and his downfall. In reality, Kiley's own life was marked by dedication, but not without its tragedies. A celebrated Broadway star, he won Tony Awards for Man of La Mancha, yet despite his talent, he was often overlooked for the flashier stars of his time. His first marriage to Mary Bellwood had its troubles, but they remained together, raising 6 children, a rarity in Hollywood, though not without its hardships. The strain of providing for a large family in an industry that favored youth weighed heavily on him, and financial insecurity was a persistent worry. In his final years, Kiley battled a devastating bone marrow disease, a cruel affliction that drained his once powerful voice and left him a shadow of his former self. On March 5, 1999, he succumbed to the illness at 76, leaving behind a career of immense contributions, but an end marked by suffering and decline.
Never mind that the poor sheep are suffering unspeakably.
Well, ma'am, out here it's got to be the wool a man cares about.
Ken Howard played Rainer Hartheim in 1983 at the age of 39, portraying a charismatic and influential politician whose power came with hidden costs. Much like his character, Howard navigated a world of influence, but his personal battles overshadowed his professional triumphs. A towering presence on screen and stage, he won a Tony Award and later became the president of the Screen Actors Guild, yet his career was marred by struggles with addiction. Alcoholism gripped him tightly in his younger years, leading to strained relationships and missed opportunities. His first marriage to Louise Sorrell ended in divorce, and though he later found stability with his second wife, Linda Fetters, the damage had already been done. His body bore the scars of years of excess. Health issues plagued him, from kidney failure requiring a transplant to the ravages of cancer. By the time pneumonia set in, his body was too weak to fight back. On March 23, 2016, he passed away at 71.
Match my mood. I trust you've seen my reviews.
I rather doubt this evening is going to cheer you up. It's all politicians and diplomats.
God.
Nan Martin stepped into the role of Sister Agatha in the Thorn Birds in 1983 at the age of 56. Her character, a strict and devout nun, embodied the rigid, unwavering faith that often masked deeper internal conflicts. Much like her character, Martin's personal life was defined by contradictions. Despite a successful career in television and film, her private life was filled with quiet suffering. Her first marriage ended in betrayal. Her husband left her for a younger woman, shattering her trust and love. Though she later remarried, the wounds never fully healed. Professionally, she faced the cruel reality of Hollywood's indifference toward aging actresses, with roles drying up as she entered her 60s. The loneliness of an industry that no longer valued her weighed heavily on her, and as her health deteriorated, she withdrew from the world, struggling with emphysema in her final years. Nan Martin died on March 4, 2010, at the age of 82.
So, we're still biting them, are we?
Yes, sister.
All right.
Richard Chamberlain played Father Ralph de Bricassard in the Thorn Birds in 1983 at the age of 49, delivering a powerful performance as a man torn between ambition, love, and faith. The role resonated deeply with audiences, cementing his status as a television icon. Prior to that, he had already gained widespread fame with Dr. Kildare and Shogun, proving his versatility as an actor. However, behind the scenes, Chamberlain grappled with personal struggles, living in an era where being openly gay could jeopardize a career. For years, he kept his sexuality private, prioritizing his work over personal fulfillment. Though he had a long-term relationship with actor Martin Rabbit, their partnership faced challenges due to Chamberlain's fear of public scrutiny. In later years, he became more open about his life, embracing his truth while reflecting on the sacrifices he made. Now, in 2025, at 90 years old, he continues to live a quiet life, enjoying his well-earned legacy as one of television's most enduring leading men.
And I think you will.
I'm very grateful, Your Grace. It's an honor.
Rachel Ward played Meggie Cleary in the Thorn Birds in 1983 at the age of 26, portraying a woman whose life was shaped by unfulfilled love and quiet suffering. The miniseries made her a household name, but her acting career never flourished as expected. Critics harshly judged her performances in films like Against All Odds, and the sting of their words left lasting scars. She married her co-star Bryan Brown in 1983, and though their marriage endured, it was often tested by long periods of separation and the pressures of Hollywood. They had 3 children, Rosie, Matilda, and Joe, but Ward struggled with balancing motherhood and an industry that was quick to discard women past their prime. Disillusioned with acting, she turned to directing, but success was fleeting. Now, in 2025, at 67, she lives in Australia, far from the Hollywood limelight, reflecting on a career that once burned brightly but faded too soon.
God is merciful. Left me no one else to grieve.
Brett Cullen portrayed Bob Cleary in the Thorn Birds in 1983 at 27, bringing to life a character known for his unwavering sense of duty and quiet suffering. Off-screen, Cullen found himself trapped in a similar role, a solid, dependable presence in Hollywood, yet never quite reaching stardom. While he built a respectable career with roles in Apollo 13, Ghost Rider, and The Dark Knight Rises, he remained a supporting player, forever on the outskirts of true fame. His personal life, too, was marked by mischances and emotional distance. He married actress Michelle Little, and they had a daughter, Harper, but the pressures of Hollywood created cracks in their relationship. Always working, always searching for the next opportunity, he never truly enjoyed the life he built, always feeling like an outsider in an industry that never fully embraced him. Now, in 2025, at 68, he lives in quiet obscurity, a man who gave everything to Hollywood but never felt it gave him anything in return.
Well, if you ask me, I think it's a lot of nonsense, Jesse. You're what, just turned 20? Just be thinking of marriage instead of parading up and down some stage in Sydney.
Marriage.
Bryan Brown played Luke O'Neill in The Thorn Birds in 1983 at 36, embodying a man who was cold, self-serving, and emotionally detached. Much like his character, Brown pursued his ambitions with ruthless determination, making a name for himself in Hollywood and Australia. His rugged persona carried him through films like Breaker Morant and Cocktail, but success came at a cost. Despite marrying Rachel Ward, their relationship was a battlefield of clashing egos, long separations, and professional rivalries. While they built a family together, Brown often felt distant, disconnected, always chasing the next role, the next challenge. The Hollywood machine eventually left him behind, reducing him to smaller, forgettable roles. A leading man turned into a supporting figure. As he aged, his health declined, his body, once strong, began to betray him, the years of stress and relentless work taking their toll. Now, in 2025, at 77, he lives a life of quiet regret, his once fiery ambition replaced by the aching loneliness.
You're a regular dreadnought, aren't you?
What about you? Never saw a boss cocky get.
Stephanie Faracy played Judy in The Thorn Birds in 1983 at 31, portraying a woman of warmth and kindness, a stark contrast to the hardships she endured off-screen. Though she found steady work in films like Heaven Can Wait and Sideways, she was never considered a major star, always relegated to supporting roles, always overlooked. Her career frustrations bled into her personal life. She never married, never had children, the dream of a family slipping further away with each passing year. Hollywood, a place that once promised so much, ultimately left her behind, and as the roles dried up, so did her sense of purpose. The loneliness weighed on her, each year a reminder of what she had lost. Now, in 2025, at 73, she lives a reclusive life, her name long forgotten by the industry she once called home, a woman who gave everything to a world that never truly saw her.
He's all right. Bet he spends all his time washing and ironing, though, just to keep up appearances.
I'll bet a man with his looks doesn't have to do his own washing.
John Delancey portrayed Alistair McQueen in The Thorn Birds in 1983 at 35, playing an ambitious businessman with a calculating mind. His breakthrough came later as Q in Star Trek: The Next Generation, a role that brought him immense recognition but also typecast him, making it difficult to secure more varied work. Despite his talents, he struggled to escape the long shadow of the franchise, and the frustration took a toll on his personal life. His marriage, once solid, suffered under the weight of his career disappointments, leading to growing detachment from his wife and children. In his later years, he developed a degenerative spinal condition, making movement increasingly painful and forcing him into semi-retirement. Now 76 in 2025, he lives a largely reclusive life, his body weakened by illness, his mind still sharp but burdened by regrets, wondering if he could have achieved something greater had circumstances been different.
I practically left the house this morning trying to get at the water.
Yes, and you said you saw several grass fires on the way up from Melbourne. Didn't you, Aunt Sarah?
Yes.
Barry Corbin played Pete in The Thorn Birds in 1983 at the age of 43, embodying the dependable stockman whose quiet wisdom and loyalty made him a beloved figure on the Cleary Ranch. Corbin went on to a prolific career in television and film, with standout roles in Northern Exposure and No Country for Old Men, but despite his success, financial troubles plagued him due to failed investments and costly divorces. He married twice, both unions ending in painful separations, and his estrangement from one of his children left a lasting emotional wound. In 2011, he was diagnosed with oral cancer, a terrifying blow for a man whose deep, commanding voice was his trademark. Though he survived, the illness and subsequent surgeries altered his speech permanently. Now 84 in 2025, Corbin lives a quiet life in Texas, his health deteriorating, his once steady career reduced to occasional minor roles, and his presence in Hollywood largely forgotten by a new generation.
All right now? Ready?
Holly Palance portrayed Miss Carmichael in The Thorn Birds in 1983 at 33, a strict but well-meaning governess. As the daughter of Hollywood legend Jack Palance, she struggled under the weight of expectations, seeking to carve out her own path in an industry that often dismissed her as merely her father's daughter. While she found moderate success in acting and later in journalism, her career never reached the heights she had hoped for. Her marriage ended in divorce, and though she had children, she found herself increasingly isolated as the years passed. In her later life, signs of cognitive decline became evident, slowly eroding her once keen intellect. Now 74 in 2025, she lives under family care, her memories slipping away, her past accomplishments fading into obscurity, with only old clips and photographs serving as reminders of a life once filled with ambition and promise.
Honestly, Lucy, well, not bad looking, I suppose, but such a rube like all those Clearys. Still, he might do for you.
Philip Anglim played Dane O'Neill in The Thorn Birds in 1983 at 31, perfectly capturing the purity and gentleness of the young priest. He initially garnered acclaim for his stage performance in The Elephant Man, but his reluctance to fully immerse himself in Hollywood politics led to his career fading quickly. He never married, keeping his personal life intensely private, and though he had relationships, none lasted, leaving him largely alone. Over time, his isolation deepened, and he withdrew almost entirely from the entertainment industry, turning to a quiet life away from the public eye. Battling depression, he shunned interviews and reunions, preferring to let his past work speak for itself. Now 73 in 2025, he remains a mystery to even his former colleagues, living in solitude, his legacy preserved in old film reels, but his presence all but erased from modern Hollywood.
I see the priest. The perfect priest.
Then you're wrong.
Mare Winningham played Justine O'Neill in The Thorn Birds in 1983 at the age of 24, portraying a strong-willed woman determined to forge her own path, rejecting the weight of her family's history. Winningham's career was steady but never reached the superstardom of many of her peers, despite earning multiple award nominations. While she remained respected in the industry, she often found herself typecast, longing for the artistic recognition she never fully received. Her personal life was turbulent. 3 failed marriages, including one to Jason Trucco, left her with a deep sense of disillusionment. Though she had children, estrangement strained her relationships, leaving her grappling with loneliness. Professionally, she found solace in music, yet it never brought the success she desired. Now 65 in 2025, she continues to perform, though the quiet echoes of regret haunt her, a life filled with work but often lacking the deep personal fulfillment she once dreamed of.
I get the feeling that our little world antagonizes you, my dear.
Oh, I suppose it shouldn't, really.
Antoinette Bower played Sarah McQueen in The Thorn Birds in 1983 at 51, embodying a sophisticated yet emotionally distant woman shaped by rigid societal expectations. Much like her character, she remained a fixture in Hollywood but never found the stardom she longed for. Throughout the 1960s and 1970s, she worked steadily in television, but major leading roles eluded her. By the late 1980s, as opportunities faded, she withdrew from the industry entirely. Her personal life was equally lonely. Her marriage to James Francis ended quietly, and without children, she found herself increasingly isolated. The world moved on without her, and she retreated into obscurity, rarely making public appearances. Now 92 in 2025, she lives a secluded existence, reflecting on a life spent chasing a career that ultimately left her with little but distant memories of the past.
We're in friendship.
Tara!
No! You lecture me on the value of human life. when your own son sits in the Melbourne prison.
Dwier Brown played Stuart Cleary in The Thorn Birds in 1983 at 24, embodying the loyal and hardworking son whose tragic fate mirrored the actor's own struggles with fleeting success. Though best known for Field of Dreams, his career remained a series of minor roles, always on the edge of something greater, but never quite breaking through. His personal life was marked by disappointment. 2 failed marriages left him emotionally drained, and his children, disillusioned by his frequent absences, grew distant. Tragedy struck when his younger brother died suddenly, a loss that sent him into a spiral of grief and self-doubt. Financial hardships forced him into teaching acting workshops, a far cry from the stardom he once pursued. Now 66 in 2025, he lives a quiet life, giving occasional interviews, forever carrying the weight of what might have been.
Well, he can never stop being a priest. Why can't you understand that? The vows he took are sacred.
Sidney Penny played young Maggie Cleary in The Thorn Birds in 1983 at the age of 12, perfectly capturing the innocence and quiet determination of a girl shaped by love and hardship. As a child actress, she transitioned into soap operas and television, yet the pressure of Hollywood weighed heavily on her. Though she married Robert Powers and had a son, the strain of maintaining a career in a ruthless industry took a toll on her personal happiness. A severe illness in her late 40s forced her to take a prolonged break from acting, making her return all the more difficult. The promising career that once seemed boundless had quietly faded, leaving her questioning whether the sacrifices of fame had been worth the emotional turmoil. Now 53 in 2025, she occasionally takes small roles but lives a quiet, private life, far from the spotlight that once defined her youth.
It's all right. It's just that sometimes God's lessons are very hard for me.
Bill Morey brought to life Angus MacQueen in 1983 at 64, embodying the stern overseer whose rigid demeanor masked years of hardship and sacrifice. Angus was pragmatic and unsentimental, qualities that resonated with Morey's own career, which was filled with perseverance rather than glamour. He spent decades as a character actor, rarely in the spotlight, always the supporting player in other people's stories. Despite appearances in Hill Street Blues and Remington Steele, he never achieved leading man status, often cast as bureaucrats and gruff authority figures. His personal life was equally unremarkable, marked by a lack of deep connections. He never married, never had children, and lived out his days in quiet solitude. The loneliness took its toll. Friends noted his increasing withdrawal in his later years, his world shrinking to a small apartment lined with scripts from roles he never got. His body, weary from years of chain smoking and the wear and tear of time, finally gave out on December 10, 2003. At 83, he passed away from natural causes. Meg Wyllie portrayed Annie in The Thorn Birds in 1983 at the age of 66. As the warm and nurturing housekeeper, she provided a sense of stability in the chaotic Cleary household. In stark contrast, Wylie's own life was far from stable. Her career was a slow grind. She spent decades in supporting roles, frequently uncredited, despite her immense talent. She remained single her entire life, reportedly due to a heartbreak in her youth that left her unwilling to trust again. As her career waned, so did her spirit. The roles became fewer, and Hollywood's brutal indifference to aging actresses left her in financial ruin. She spent her final years in a small apartment, alone, her health steadily deteriorating. The once lively performer who brought warmth to the screen became a recluse, her phone rarely ringing, her mail consisting mostly of medical bills. She died on January 1, 2002, at the age of 84 from heart failure. Rance Howard played Doc Wilson in The Thorn Birds in 1983 at the age of 55. As the wise and compassionate doctor, his character exuded a quiet dignity, tending to wounds both physical and emotional. In reality, Howard's life was riddled with personal sacrifices. Though he carved a niche as a character actor, he was constantly overshadowed by his son, Ron Howard, whose meteoric rise in Hollywood left Rance forever in the background. His career was defined by a relentless work ethic, but success remained just out of reach. His first marriage ended in tragedy. His wife, Jean, succumbed to a long battle with illness, leaving him devastated. Though he remarried, the weight of his past never left him. Financial struggles loomed, and he was often forced to take roles far beneath his capabilities just to survive. Near the end of his life, a diagnosis of heart disease and complications from West Nile virus left him in a weakened state. Rance Howard died on November 25, 2017, at the age of 89. Who is your favorite character in the Thorn Birds? How do you feel knowing that the actors have passed away? Feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this content, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell so you don't miss future videos. Thank you so much.